After the dark, you come into the light. From the light, you will return to the dark. All these words not only describe the tenets of the Brotherhood, but also the whole story of the Assassin's Creed series. We've seen the rise of the series and its fall into darkness, seen breakdown of all possible standards and rules and the consequences of this. And all this in one game, Assassin's Creed Unity. First of the last Assassin's Creed games, the one which began the decline of the series, but is essentially its apotheosis. I'm Nitzere, and today I'll tell you how Assassin's Creed Unity failed, why it is still one of the best parts of the series, and how the game was ahead of its time by almost 10 years. In March 2014, Assassin's Creed Unity was announced, the first full-fledged spin-off after the completion of the original trilogy, as well as the first part on a completely new engine. It crossed the line of generations and was promoted as the first real next-gen, as a game that would change the gaming industry, as a completely new experience in the Assassin's Creed universe. The game was released in November 2014. And despite really gorgeous graphics, excellent gameplay and a plot quite unusual for the series, it failed. People who don't know this story will probably wonder, how could this happen? Well, AC Unity looked something like this and ran something like this. Yeah, it's somehow 720p and 20 or even 10 or even 0 unstable FPS. And yes, for a modern player, this state of play at the release is normal. Well, it's not exactly normal, okay, but in general people will rage and just swallow it. But back then, it was a precedent. There was neither the third Witcher, which was not doing well at the release, nor Arkham Knight, not even more so Cyberpunk, and therefore the general public was not very enthusiastic. And what added to the whole situation was that at almost the same time another one Assassin's Creed was released, Rogue, and people had something to play, and 2014 itself was not exactly a poor year for games, and the UB were no in hurry to fix the game, and therefore Unity was hated, forgotten and practically sent to the dustbin of history. But the question remains, aside from a frankly terrible release, did the game deserve it? Let's figure it out. For this video I completed ACU for the second time. The first time I completed it was back in 2019 on PS4, and even then, even on that hardware, it ran pretty confidently. Having played it now on PC, I can say one thing. The game does not lag, and at the same time it looks simply gorgeous. Just look at all these textures, all this rendering, and the overall look of the game. Now understand that game came out in 2014, almost 10 years ago, and none of the subsequent Assassins came close to it in terms of overall graphics feel. But that's not all. The one more thing is that the events in the game take place during the French Revolution, and therefore everywhere in the game you can find a huge crowds of people. And these are not just still pictures in the background, these are real NPCs moving, talking and even interacting with the player and reacting to his actions. Needless to say, in no other game will you encounter such crowds of NPCs. Also, speaking of the plot. Yeah, of course, the general plotline of Assassins about the killed mother, brother or anyone other remains. But here, the game provides us with a much deeper story. Not just about revenge and the brotherhood of assassins, but about the growing up of a person, betrayals, losses, difficult choices and most importantly, the consequences of one's own actions. Here, the game tells the story of interaction between the Brotherhood and the Order beyond kill the assassins, kill the Templars. We see political intrigues, stories and the connect of destinies of people and complex character choices. Moreover, this is the only assassin that does not simply end with the murder of the main villain and rainbow with ponies. And yes, this story still does not qualify for an Oscar or should be put in the house of weights and measures, but in truth, probably before Valhalla, this is the most interesting, integral and the most importantly laconic, yeah Ubisoft, plot of Assassin's Creed. On top of that, here was the first attempt to reject or minimize the presence of modernity, and it was a good attempt. And what about missions? Everything is extremely interesting. They are both standard Arna story missions and missions in other times well woven into the main plot, showing both the capabilities of a new engine and the skill of the designers, and giving off a lot of epic and incredible atmosphere of different eras all in one game. There are also missions in the open world, and these, at the time of the release, were perhaps the best of all. There are random events, yeah, a few and they're repeated, but nevertheless, and investigation which received much better execution already in AC Syndicate, and simply fun missions with historical figures and co-op. Speaking of which, literally upon release, the game had many signs of a service game. There was also a rather strange beginning hinting to us that the game was supposed to become a hub for all parts of Assassin's Creed, and also a companion app for the phone in which you had some quests to complete. Yeah, as you understand, they were put under the knife at the first place. Here also appeared near RPG pumping and donation. Yes, donations, yes in single player. Did you expect anything different from the Ubi? And there is also green. But there were also a lot of excellent things. For example, the missions in co-op are really interesting. Leveling up, although it has its drawbacks in general, does not force you to farm just to complete the game. It also truly gives you a huge choice of customizing the gameplay for the player. You can either assemble into a tank with heavy weapon and one-shot enemies absorbing all incoming damage, or become an invisible killer capable of hiding literally in the plain sight, or assemble your own version of an Inspector Gadget capable of over-smoking even 10 school children, and the gameplay of the game at whole is really impressive. The best in the series and the most advanced parkour, with many features, smooth and varied animations, and the city itself in the game does not interfere with parkour. All of Paris in here is a huge and incredibly beautiful parkour trail with various ways to pass it, and some interesting things in literally every corner. In Unity, it was really interesting for me to just run around the city and collect chests and collectibles only because the game has really nice parkour. The combat in here is also excellent. Yeah, it's still relatively one-buttoned as in other Assassins, but there is no overabundance of useless, not needed and simply weak bells and whistles and gadget as in subsequent parts, but at the same time the combat is not dull and not overly unfair as in earlier parts. The AI of opponents has also been changed here. Now the enemy remembers Arno, and therefore the more often you catch their eye, the sooner they will raise the alarm. And merging together, all these advantages create perhaps one of the best games in the open world. Interesting movement and interaction with opponents, many different additional missions, and the main story missions are not afraid to use all the advantages of the open world. The game doesn't put the player in a narrow bottleneck, forcing him to complete a mission in the open world along a certain path and road, and God forbid you take a wrong turn, as GTA or RDR often do, and does not create completely choreographed missions without the ability to divide from the script, as it was in earlier parts of the Assassin's Creed. They even fixed the surveillance missions here, they are no longer stuffy. Now, if you lose sight of the target, desynchronization does not occur, and you just need to make eye contact again. In general, the game does not give you full scope of action, but it allows the player to complete most missions in at least a couple or even 5 or more ways, like just walking around you can find help for escaping or prepare for the mission and simplify it for a safe passage. This is achieved in a very simple way, by transferring all possible conditions for completing the mission into tasks for 100% synchronization. So you can kill an important enemy either quietly, huddled in a crowd, or from a specially prepared shelter, or with a pistol, or even just start a mess and in a fair fight, defeating all the guards, reach your goal. The game does not limit you, and even more, it pushes you to complete missions in a variety of ways. And what do we have in the end? Assassin's Creed Unity is still one of the best and most importantly very non-standard Assassins. Diverse, with interesting gameplay and an unusual plot, with simply amazing graphics and truly incredible cars of people. Yes, the game is certainly not without its drawbacks, but remember what I said? The game was ahead of its time, for about 10 years. Nowadays, the nation in single player is not perceived as honestly as RPG leveling in adventure games. Now games are much often released unfinished, and for many people this has already become the norm. And with the current power of hardware, it's even difficult for me to imagine what Assassin's Creed Unity could become now.